What do you mean we're losing money at our busiest location? Travis Cole stood frozen in the middle of his sleek downtown office, arms crossed tightly against his chest, his eyes glued to the financial report glowing coldly on his monitor. He'd inherited the restaurant chain from his father 5 years ago, a modest empire of 6 family-style restaurants scattered across the state. The business had always been resilient, weathering economic dips and industry trends, but now something was unraveling. Store 3, the original, the flagship, the heart of it all, was bleeding profits. Worse yet, staff turnover had quietly surged, the numbers whispering a truth too loud to ignore. He called Mason, his district manager, who gave the usual brush off. Probably just burnout. Everyone's hiring. We'll get through it. But that phrase, get through it, had become a tired mantra, empty and routine. Travis felt a slow simmering in his gut. He hadn't visited Store 3 in over a year. Most of the original team had moved on. He'd been so busy expanding the company's reach that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be inside the very soul of it. That night, a quiet resolve settled over him like armor. He would go undercover, not as an executive or a manager, but as someone easily overlooked, a line cook, a nameless trainee. He'd grow out his beard, slap on some thick glasses, pull on loose chef whites, and answer to Greg. No one currently on staff had ever met him face to face, and the training program was generic enough to make his cover believable. 3 days later, he pulled into the parking lot of Store 3 in a rusted old pickup. The sign still flickered in the wind like it had 30 years ago, a sad echo of better days. But the energy had changed. There were no friendly nods, no laughter from the kitchen door, just a lingering tension in the air, like something sacred had been misplaced. Inside, the air was thick with old grease and frayed nerves. He made his way to the back, where a short, stocky woman with a phone buzzing endlessly on her hip barely glanced up. "You the new guy?" she asked. "Yeah. Greg," Travis said evenly. "Fine, clock in. You're on prep with Walt." He nodded and made his way into the kitchen, where he found Walt, a gaunt, elderly man hunched over a pile of potatoes. His silver hair was damp with sweat, his movements slow but precise. He looked up with eyes that seemed hollowed by time and exhaustion. "New kid, huh?" Walt's voice was gravelly, but warm. "You ever slice onions without crying?" Travis grinned. "Not really." "Well, today's your day." Walt slid a cutting board across the metal table. They worked in near silence. Walt moved with the kind of muscle memory that only decades of repetition could carve. But his body betrayed his spirit. Every half hour he'd wince, pressing his lower back, breathing deep, as if gathering the strength to continue. By 4 p.m., the pressure in the kitchen shifted, not from heat but from friction. Orders piled up and Shelby, the manager, barked out commands with growing venom. "Faster. Table 9's been waiting forever." Then her voice turned ice cold. "You're not going home at 6 today, Walt. You're closing with the rest of us." Walt blinked slowly, the weariness in his eyes deepening. "But I've got the early shift again tomorrow." "Not my problem," she snapped. "You want hours? You stay. We're short." Travis froze. He knew the schedule. Walt had been here since before dawn. He was supposed to clock out at 6. Now Shelby was forcing him to stay past 10. No protest, no resistance, just a small, slow nod from Walt as he turned back to his chopping board, his movements slower, shoulders lower. After the shift, Travis stayed behind and helped Walt carry a heavy stock pot to the sink. The old man's hands trembled slightly. "You okay?" Travis asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Walt didn't look up. He just nodded faintly. But his silence said more than words ever could. "Been worse," Walt muttered, wiping his forehead with the back of his sleeve. Travis glanced at him, heart heavy. Do they always keep you that late? Walt gave a dry, weary chuckle, one that sounded like it had been stored deep in his chest for years. Only when Shelby's around. She figures I'm too old or too tired to say no. Travis's throat tightened. You ever talk to the owner? Walt shrugged without looking up. Never met the guy. That hit Travis harder than he expected. Shame flared in his chest, mixed with something heavier. Guilt. He had built a business, yes, but somewhere along the way he'd stopped seeing the people inside it. The days that followed only confirmed what his gut had already whispered. Shelby ran the store like a boot camp sergeant with something to prove. She barked orders without listening, dismissed customer complaints with rolled eyes, and treated the team like gears in a machine, grinding them down until there was barely anything left. But not everything was broken. There was Julia, soft-spoken, maybe 23 or 24. She worked the lunch shift, always one step ahead, always quietly cleaning up behind others. One afternoon, Travis watched as she slipped a sandwich to a dishwasher who hadn't eaten all day. Another time she stayed behind after clocking out, scrubbing down the walk-in freezer without being asked. You don't have to do that, Travis told her. She gave him a tired but honest smile. Yeah, I know. But if I don't, who will? Then there was Manny the dishwasher. He barely spoke English but never missed a shift. He picked up slack without being asked, covering for others, scrubbing pans until his fingertips wrinkled. He was invisible to most, but not to Travis. There was something beautiful and tragic in all of it. These people weren't just surviving, they were holding the place together with quiet acts of resilience. On the 5th day, Travis sat alone in the break room, watching Walt rub his shoulder, the pain carved deep into his muscles. You shouldn't still be here, Travis said gently. Walt looked up, calm but spent. Somebody's got to keep the kitchen going. But not like this, Travis said, voice firm now. Walt didn't respond. He didn't have to. The silence was an admission of defeat. Travis stood slowly, his jaw tightened. He was done hiding. Tomorrow Greg would disappear, and Travis Cole, the owner, would finally show up. The next morning, just before the lunch rush, Travis walked through the front door of Store 3. Clean-shaven, no glasses, no disguise. Gone was the white kitchen coat. In its place, a navy button-down, sleeves rolled. His posture carried weight, not just of ownership, but of accountability. He walked like a man who had built something, only to realize it had started to rot from the inside. The customers didn't recognize him, they never would, but Annie the hostess looked up briefly, then down again. You picking up? She asked, casually. No, Travis replied. I'm here to see the manager. She hesitated. Shelby? That's the one. Annie squinted, unsure. Should I tell her who's asking? Tell her it's the owner. Her eyes widened. Travis Cole? He nodded once. She vanished behind the kitchen door. Moments later, Shelby emerged, her footsteps fast and sharp. The second she saw him, her face hardened. Mr. Cole, didn't know you were coming by. I know, Travis said. That was the point. She crossed her arms. If this is about the numbers, I've already sent Mason the update. This isn't about spreadsheets, Travis interrupted. We need to talk, privately. They walked into the cramped manager's office. The air smelled like stale coffee and frustration. Boxes were stacked in the corners. A whiteboard listed shifts like a chessboard of casualties. Travis shut the door behind them. Sit. Shelby remained standing. He didn't wait. I've been working your kitchen the last 5 days. Ask Greg. She blinked. You? What? I watched you push an elderly man 6 hours past his shift. I watched you ignore safety protocols, scream at your staff, and treat them like they're disposable. Her voice rose. You don't understand. We're short-staffed. I do what I have to do. No, he cut in, voice calm but unrelenting. You didn't keep it running. You broke it. You didn't lead. You threatened. You didn't motivate. You manipulated. And now, good people are burning out. She scoffed. I'm doing my best to hit the targets you set. I set goals, not orders to treat human beings like machines. Her tone shifted to indignation. You're being dramatic. Travis leaned in, his voice a whisper of fire. Walt's been here longer than you've been in this business. Julia works off the clock to cover your negligence. Manny hasn't had a real break all week. You didn't notice. Or worse, you didn't care. Her arms dropped. You don't know what it's like in the trenches anymore, she muttered. Travis stepped closer. I just spent 5 days in your trenches and I'm telling you this ends now. Her eyes flickered with disbelief. Her letting me go. I'm firing you, effective immediately. Your final paycheck will be processed today. She opened her mouth to argue, but he was already walking out. Back in the kitchen, a hush fell over the room. Walt turned from the sink, confusion etched into his brow. Thought you were out sick, he said slowly. Travis smiled faintly as he rolled up his sleeves. I wasn't sick, he said. My name's not Greg. It's Travis. I own this place. The kitchen went still. You're the boss? Julia asked, stepping out from the prep table. I am, he nodded. And I owe every one of you an apology for what I let happen here. Walt dried his hands slowly on a towel. Why'd you come down here? Because I forgot what this place was supposed to be. I looked at spreadsheets instead of people. That's on me. Manny peeked from behind the dish pit, his eyes darting between faces. You fired her? Julia asked quietly. I did, Travis said. She won't be back. And in that moment, something shifted, not just in the room, but in the hearts of those inside it. A breath released, a weight lifted, and the quiet, sacred work of rebuilding began. No one clapped, no one cheered, but the silence had shifted. Julia stepped forward at last, eyes steady. What happens now? We regroup, Travis said, but not overnight. He didn't sugarcoat it. I'm not going to stand here and pretend everything's fixed because I gave a speech and fired a manager. We're short-staffed, I know that, but starting today, I'm staying here, on site, every day for the next month. We're restructuring shifts, hiring properly, and making damn sure no one's working unpaid minutes again. A few heads lifted, skepticism, maybe, but also curiosity. I'm also bringing in 2 assistant managers from our other stores to help stabilize things. Good people. Steady hands. Walt raised an eyebrow, his voice quiet but dry. You working the line too? Travis cracked a half smile. I've got my apron in the truck. He wasn't bluffing. 10 minutes later, he was back on the line, sleeves rolled, standing next to Julia, slicing bell peppers with the focus of a man who had something to prove. That's a weird cut, she said, leaning over with a teasing smile. I was always slower on prep, he admitted, sheepish. She reached over and gently adjusted his grip. Like this, keep the blade tilted. Nodded, copying her hand. How long have you been here? Almost a year, she said. Started right out of college. Was supposed to be a summer job, 3 months. But then I met Manny and Walt. Couldn't just leave them in that chaos. You shouldn't have had to carry that weight, Travis said, voice softer now. That's not your job. Someone had to care, she said. He looked at her. Really looked. Now it's my turn. Out in the dining room, the lunch rush rolled on like any other day. But inside the kitchen, something had shifted. Not in volume, not in speed, but in spirit. People weren't smiling yet, but they were watching. Later that afternoon, Travis sat outside with Walt, both of them perched on crates in the alley, eating takeout off paper plates. The sun hit the pavement in long, golden streaks. "You don't owe me anything," Walt said quietly. "I owe you more than you know," Travis replied. "I'm not looking to make it right with a check, just a little decency. On the clock." "You'll get it," Walt said, nodding once. "Every shift. Every day." Travis hesitated, then added, "You ever think about training new hires?" Walt chuckled. "I'm not exactly a motivational speaker." "You don't need to be," Travis said. "You've got 30 years of experience. That's worth more than any corporate slideshow." Walt paused. "I'll think about it." That evening, Travis called a full staff meeting. Front of house, back of house, everyone. They gathered in the dining room, still unsure of him, still feeling the bruises of past weeks. He stood in front of them, a clipboard in hand. No speech, just truth. "I won't waste your time," he began. "The last few months have been rough. Some of you were overworked, some of you were taken advantage of. That ends today." Heads turned. "We're restructuring the team, adjusting pay and hiring more help. If anyone asks you to clock out early while still working, you come to me directly." A hand went up in the back, one of the servers. "What if we're not sure who to trust yet?" Travis nodded. "That's fair. Don't trust words. Watch what we do this week. Then decide." He ended the meeting there. No slogans, no corporate buzzwords. Just a promise, one that had to be earned, not spoken. That night, after everyone had left, Travis stayed behind. He scrubbed down the prep counters, locked the doors, and flipped the lights off himself. As the kitchen faded into stillness, he paused. It wasn't fixed, not yet, but for the first time in a long time, it felt honest. By week 2, Travis had fallen into an uneven but purposeful rhythm. Mornings began in the kitchen with Manny and Julia, slicing produce, prepping sauces, breaking down delivery pallets. By midday, he'd move into scheduling, cross-checking payroll, trying to fill the holes left behind by years of unchecked management. He slept in the back office, converted it into a makeshift room with a fold-out cot and a thermos of cold coffee. No windows, just resolve. He wasn't leaving until the shift culture changed from the inside out. But change moved slower than he liked. The staff was polite but careful. They followed his lead but with hesitation. A stiffness remained in their voices, a calculation behind their eyes. One good week wasn't enough to erase months of fear and neglect. Late one afternoon, as the pre-dinner lull drifted in, Travis sat reviewing supplier invoices. That's when something caught his eye. A charge for cleaning supplies, 6 cases of industrial degreaser. Placed on a Sunday. The same type of order, again and again, for the last 3 months. Always the same quantity, always the same supplier code. But Sundays weren't delivery days. He walked out to the prep area, paper in hand. "Julia," he said, "did we really go through 6 cases of degreaser last month?" She blinked. 6? No way. Maybe 1. 2 if the floors were bad. "You ever sign for a Sunday delivery?" She shook her head. "We don't get deliveries on Sundays. Nobody's here unless there's catering." Travis nodded, jaw tightening. He returned to the office, waited until after the dinner rush and called in Mel, the assistant manager who'd been there about 4 months. She stepped in, calm as ever, arms relaxed at her sides. "Can you walk me through how you've been placing supply orders?" Travis asked. "They're automated," she said. "I check the inventory, click submit, same template every week." "Who set that up?" "She'll be He held up the printout. These Sunday orders, did you sign for them? Her expression darkened. No, I don't work Sundays. Then who did? She hesitated. I don't know. Maybe Shelby had someone else handle it. I checked with the supplier. These weren't deliveries. They were pickups, signed for in person. Mel's face twitched. Not shocked, but guarded. If there's something I need to know, Travis said quietly, now's the time. Mel glanced away, exhaled. She had a guy, cousin maybe. She said we had to keep the order numbers up to qualify for bulk discounts. I didn't ask questions. You saw suspicious orders and didn't ask questions. I needed the job. Mel snapped. I've got 3 kids. You think I was going to challenge the person who controlled the schedule? Travis looked at her long and hard. You're not being fired. But you're not staying in management either. Starting tomorrow, you're back on server shifts while we review everything. She didn't argue, just nodded once and walked out. And with that, another hidden crack came into the light. Someone else is taking over ordering, starting now. Mel didn't argue. She just nodded once, let out a breath like a slow release of fear, and walked out of the office with quiet resignation. By sunrise the next day, Travis was already on the phone with the supplier. He personally flagged every suspicious invoice connected to Store 3. What he learned made his stomach turn. Multiple Sunday pickups had been signed under Shelby's name, billed to the restaurant, but the items never made it to the shelves. They'd been diverted, likely resold, stolen from under everyone's nose. The rest of his morning vanished into phone calls. Legal teams, accountants, his regional managers. By noon, he had launched a full audit across all 6 locations, with a detailed review of every transaction Shelby had handled in the past year. The deeper they dug, the more threads they found, leading to holes in the business he thought he knew. After lunch, Julia waved him over near the walk-in cooler. Someone's here asking about a job, she said. Said you told her to come by. Travis raised an eyebrow. Who? She didn't give a full name, said she used to run a bakery. You met her in Burbank? His eyes lit up. Karen? He stepped into the dining room, and there she was, sitting quietly near the hostess stand in worn jeans and a gray cardigan, hands folded in her lap like she belonged to the place already. Sharon had once run one of the first restaurants his father had franchised, a small, bakery-style cafe with a cult following that closed during the pandemic. She was a legend in the company's early years, sharp, steady, and fiercely fair. Travis still remembered her cinnamon rolls. And her spine of steel. He smiled. Didn't expect to see you so soon. She stood, grinning back. You said if I ever got tired of retirement, I should find you. I didn't think you'd take me up on it. I got bored, she said with a shrug, and I figured you might need someone who knows how to keep a kitchen honest. He laughed. Come on, I'll show you around. He led her through the back where the afternoon crew was mid-prep, peeling, chopping, cleaning, portioning. Karen observed everything. Her gaze moved like a surgeon's hands, dissecting workflow, spotting inefficiencies, watching how people moved and paused, how often they reached for something that wasn't where it should be. After just 10 minutes, she turned to him. You're short 1 utility, 2 preps, and the cold stations are behind. Timing's off by 20 minutes. You saw all that already? He asked, impressed. She raised an eyebrow. You asked? Want to run this crew? Only if I get to train them my way. He waved to the whiteboard. Pick your start date. She started the next day. By the end of the week, Karen had overhauled the entire prep timeline. She implemented staggered prep blocks so no one felt rushed at the peak. She rotated line cooks between stations to prevent burnout. She even introduced a mandatory 10-minute cool-down break halfway through any shift longer than 6 hours. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't radical. But it worked. By Friday, Travis found Julia at the soda station, refilling ice, her movements lighter, her shoulders looser than they'd been in weeks. "I saw the new schedule," she said. "No more doubles." "And no more unpaid hours either," Travis added. She nodded. "It's starting to feel different." Travis leaned against the counter. "How's Manny?" He asked if the dishwasher was new. She said, smiling. "Said it runs better now." "It's the same one," Travis chuckled. "We just cleaned the filters." Julia laughed softly, then grew quiet. "People ask me if this is just temporary, if everything's going to snap back the second you leave." He looked at her, not answering right away. "What do you tell them?" he finally asked. She paused, then said, "I tell them, I don't know." Then her voice dropped to something more tender. "But I hope not." And for Travis, for the first time since he walked back into Store 3, disguised, disillusioned, and distant, he believed her hope was worth building around. Travis didn't answer right away. He just looked out across the kitchen floor, where the light from the walk-in flickered slightly in the corners. "You won't have to wonder much longer," he finally said, voice steady. "I'm not leaving. I'll be splitting my time between here and the other stores. No more running things from a desk." Julia blinked, surprised. "You're staying in the field?" "I should have never left it." That night, long after the last dish was stacked and the lights dimmed, Travis sat alone in the back office with hiring reports scattered across the desk. 3 new cooks were scheduled to start next week. 2 dishwashers had already been hired and trained, and while it wasn't perfect, something was returning. Momentum, presence, purpose. The restaurant had a pulse again, and this time Travis wasn't observing it from a distance. He was part of it. The following Monday, Travis arrived before the sun broke the horizon. The alley behind the store was damp from an early rain. He flipped on the breakers, listening as the low hum of the walk-in cooler kicked to life. A delivery truck rumbled in the distance. By 6, Karen had arrived, followed by Walt and Lewis, a new prep cook recently graduated from a culinary program for veterans. They moved with intention, without the edge of anxiety that had once filled the air. No wasted steps, no barked orders. The system was stabilizing. But Travis knew, systems alone don't save culture. People do. Just before the lunch rush began, Travis gathered the staff in the dining room. No clipboards, no corporate lingo. Just a circle of chairs pulled from empty tables and the sound of someone showing up. For real. "I know we've made a lot of changes lately," Travis began, hands in his pockets. "And I know some of you are still waiting to see if this holds. That's fair. You've been burned before. But let me be clear. This isn't a rebrand. It's a responsibility. Mine and yours." He scanned the room. They weren't nervous anymore, just cautious. Listening. "So, here's what's next," he said. "Starting next pay cycle, everyone here is eligible for a performance bonus. It won't be based on speed or ticket count. It'll be based on how we show up for each other, how we lead from wherever we stand, and how we make this place stronger together." Annie, the quiet hostess, raised her hand part way. "What if someone doesn't pull their weight?" "Then we talk about it," Travis said plainly. "No whispers, no blame games. We deal with it together, like a team." Manny leaned in, his voice low. "And if someone disrespects people again, that's not just a talk, right?" "No," Travis said, meeting his gaze. "That's a line. And if it's crossed, they're out. No warnings." Lewis nodded quietly beside him. The room was silent, but not stiff. A new kind of silence. Trust beginning to root. After the meeting, most returned to their stations. Travis stayed behind, stacking chairs one by one. Julia approached. "Did you mean it?" she asked, "about bonuses not being tied to speed?" He looked up. "Every word. This isn't a factory, it's a team. There's a dishwasher at my friend's place, she added. Doesn't speak much English, but he's dependable. Tell him to come in tomorrow, Travis said. We'll train him up. As lunch rolled in, Travis worked the expo line, calmly calling out orders, correcting a missing garnish without a raised voice. Walt moved at his own pace. No one rushed him. Louis mirrored his prep rhythm. Manny kept dishes cycling like clockwork. For the first time since Travis had walked in as a fake trainee, the team didn't just function, they flowed together. By mid-afternoon, Travis was reviewing final audit reports in the office when his phone buzzed. It was Mason. "Cheese skimmed from 4 stores," Mason said. "Inventory fraud, kickbacks from the supplier, falsified payroll." "How bad?" "About 25 grand, most traceable, legals on it." Her cousin's name was on multiple invoices, both under investigation. "Make sure everyone here knows," Travis said. "They're not paying the price for this." "Already taken care of." Travis hung up, leaning back in his chair. 2 years ago, he would have left this kind of thing to Mason, read a summary, moved on. But that version of him couldn't have fixed what happened here. Couldn't have saved it. He stood, stretched, and walked toward the walk-in cooler. Inside, Karen was checking produce. She glanced over. "You still here?" "I'll be here a while." "Good," she said. "They're not ready to steer without you." Doubling, they shouldn't need one person. "No," she said, "but they need one person to show them what right looks like." She handed him a clipboard. "We're short on cilantro. Supplier sent parsley." "How Colden?" Just then, a knock echoed from the back door. Julia opened it, revealing a young man with calloused hands, nervous eyes, and a backpack hanging from one shoulder. "This the new dishwasher?" Travis asked. Julia nodded. "Raphael." Travis stepped forward and extended a hand. "Welcome to Store 3. That evening, the floors shone. The air was still. Travis stepped into the alley where rain tapped gently against the dumpster lids. Walt stood outside, a takeout box in hand. "Something up?" Travis asked. "I was thinking," Walt said. "I'll take that training role, if it's still open." Travis nodded. "It is. Don't expect me to smile through it," Walt added. "I'd rather you didn't." They stood in the quiet, rain whispering around them. "You're not like your dad," Walt said after a moment. "No," Travis replied, voice soft. "But I think I finally understand what he was trying to build." Walt handed him the takeout box. Raphael didn't want to take food home, said he hadn't earned it yet. "Yeah," I told him that too. Travis walked back inside and found Raphael near the sink, finishing the last trays. He set the box down gently. "Here," he said. "No one leaves hungry." Raphael nodded, eyes lowered, a single word carried in that silence. "Thanks." The next morning, Travis drafted a company-wide letter. No headlines, no PR gloss, just a truth he owed them. He wrote that he'd gone undercover because he stopped trusting what he was hearing, that he found failure but also strength, that the failures were his, and the strength belonged to the people who stayed when things were hardest. He ended it with one line. "If we can't protect the people who show up every day, we don't deserve to be in business." The memo went out that afternoon. At Store 3, the week moved forward. There were still late deliveries, fryer issues, and the occasional no-show. But this time, the team didn't meet those setbacks with panic or silence. They faced them together. Julia took over onboarding new servers. Raphael, in just 4 days, had cut cleanup time by nearly 20%. Walt wrote a training manual by hand, 3 pages filled with wisdom only years could earn. Karen laminated it. Travis didn't go back to the corporate office. He didn't need to anymore.